Dieser Podcast wird präsentiert von Limitation. Limitation ist ein Online-Shop, der Modeschmuck zu den besten Preisen im Internet verkauft. Da gibt es alles: Armbänder, Halsschmuck, Ohrschmuck, Ringe, tolle Marken wie Swarovski, wie Kudo, wie Energetics. Wirklich zum besten Preis im Internet. Die haben momentan sogar eine Kick-Off-Aktion und das bedeutet minus 60% auf das gesamte Sortiment. Also da gibt es wirklich 60% weniger und das sind einfach unglaubliche Preise. Schaut da bitte einmal rein auf www.limitation.at. Ja, ganz toller Modeschmuck. Im Übrigen vieles davon in Österreich gefertigt mit sehr vielen Naturmaterialien. Also wirklich sehr, sehr feine Sachen. Und damit aber noch nicht genug, denn wenn ihr ins Gutscheinfeld Tom Herzog Podcast eingebt, dann bekommt ihr nochmal minus 20% auf den Warenwert eures Einkaufs. Also auf die minus 60 und dann nochmal minus 20. Also eigentlich kaum zu glauben. Schaut auf www.limitation.at und Code, Name Tom Herzog Podcast zusammengeschrieben, nicht vergessen. Wir haben auch einen neuen Sponsor. Und zwar wird dieser Podcast auch präsentiert von Team Sporttherapie. Team Sporttherapie, das sind ganz coole Jungs, die verschiedene Leistungen für Sportler anbieten. Und zwar geht es da um Therapie, es geht um Trainingsgestaltung, es geht um Massage. Also wenn man selber ein bisschen sportlich aktiv ist, man muss kein Profisportler sein, aber vielleicht ein engagierterer Hobbysportler, dann kann man zu diesen Jungs gehen, Team Sporttherapie, und die checken einen durch, die machen einem Trainingspläne, die massieren auch ganz, ganz toll. Das sind wirklich coole Jungs, das sind zum Teil selber Profisportler oder ehemalige Profisportler, die einen tollen sportwissenschaftlichen Hintergrund auch haben. Also kann ich wirklich sehr, sehr empfehlen. Die Adresse ist www.team-sporttherapie.at. Schaut mal drauf, da könnt ihr euch einen Termin buchen. So, und jetzt würde ich sagen, gehen wir es an.
The Tom Herzog Podcast.
Live, straight out the jungle.
Tom Herzog Podcast. The Tom Herzog Podcast. Tom Herzog Podcast.
Three, two, one, boom, we are live. Jawara, welcome to the studio.
Thank you. Pleasure to be here, Thomas.
The pleasure is all mine. I'm super excited. It's my first podcast in English.
Okay.
Thank you very much. I have to add, it's not you that requested it to be in English, but it was me because I wanted to use the chance, and thank you very much for that.
Pleasure. Absolute pleasure. Yeah.
Jawara, you are the gentleman of soul. You are.
Yes. I am he.
You are a great soul singer, and another reason why I'm happy that you're here is that I really have a big passion for good music, for real music, for soul, for jazz, also classical music, but in any case, music that's really done, that's really live, where people actually really can sing.
Yeah.
And soul is definitely in that category. So
Thanks.
that's another reason. How did you come to soul? What was it a long journey, or was
Yes, most definitely. It was one of those things that in terms of like growing up as a child, I didn't know first off really that I was going to be an artist, and that was something that I was going to do. I didn't necessarily have how many role models at the time, but I did have a relative of mine who was a dancer and studied classical dance, and he became a singer. And what happened was my situation is that I was in born and brought up in London and so on, and lived in London until I was 13. But when I was 13, my parents went back to St. Lucia. My parents being from St. Lucia in the Caribbean, they went back to St. Lucia, and I was the youngest one in my family, so I went back with them, and I went to school there. And when I came back, which was after 4 or 5 years, I was in the Caribbean, came back, and I came back to the UK 17, 18 years old. I saw my cousin, he was doing a show, and he at that time had become a singer, and he was doing a show in Kent, in England, and I saw like 350 kids, excuse me, going crazy while he's, doing this show, singing a few songs, and I'm like, man, this is my family doing this, And
I know this guy.
Yeah, and he obviously, we were in contact. He brought me to the event, and I got to see him perform for this first time and see the reaction. And when I saw that reaction, then it was this whole thing of me finding out more and more about, music and singing and the music business. And, I was fortunate to have someone who was in it and so on. And I was able to learn quite a bit about it and take it from there. And after a number of years, making a decision that it's something that I actually really want as my career, So
you had someone that brought you right back to the behind the scenes kind of backstage, and you saw all the things that were going on and that are maybe attached to the business and come along, like what you have to do, promotion and
I was very,
promote
very
the concert
fortunate.
or whatever.
I was very fortunate from that perspective. Before I made the decision that I wanted to do this as my career, I was able to see every aspect of it. So when he was touring the UK, I went on tour with him. When he was recording, and some of the top studios in London, he was recording at the Hit Factory, which the Hit Factory is one of those places whereby it's still going now. And, George Michael performed, recorded many of his major albums there back in the day. Sade, her first few albums were done there, etc., amongst many other performers. So
those are they're very famous studios.
Yeah, this particular studio. There are many famous studios in the UK. This particular studio is one of them, because at the time it was owned by CBS, which then became Sony and so on, and owned it. So I was able to see him recording there, as well as I said, going on tour with him, seeing when he signed his first, major contract.
So he was already on a high level. Then.
And I got that opportunity to see many of those different things before saying that this is something that I want to do as my career. And I started working on my voice, and you find out about so many different things in terms of what you like, what you're partying to at the time, but also as well, starting to study the classics in terms of, he was a soul artist, I loved soul music, and you're studying the classics. So at the time, you're starting to study, the Marvin Gayes, the Teddy Pendergrasses, the Al Greens, the Billy Oceans, and so on and so on, and and what happens, how it happens, where they wrote their great albums and so on, and what are their processes and things that they dealt with. And so that was a great journey for me in terms of being able to start things off with, you start off very enthusiastic and finding out about everything, and which was great. And I had that chance to see all those different sides, basically, which was very, very great for me before saying this is what I want to do.
Wow.
So that was cool. Being able to do that. And
I mean, soul is a little bit of, for us guys, maybe we're about approximately same age or something, but it's still a music that's that happened or that occurred before our time, more or less.
Yes. We can say that.
We could say that. So, so in your youth, there was maybe, I don't know which typical band there was in the charts and was on top, and all the other young people were listening to. So in your time, when you were 18 or 19 or in this area, you had a different focus than the rest of maybe your age
most
group.
definitely. Yes, it was a different focus, but also as well, I had both worlds. I had both of those worlds, in terms of being able to listen, and I went out and partied to what was the current music of the time and of the day.
You didn't avoid it.
No, most definitely. Most definitely not. That was my time, and I thoroughly enjoyed it. Definitely. I was out there, I was partying, and my thing was the time I was in was really the time of acid jazz. When acid jazz was just starting to get traction and so on. You had groups like, which started before that, one of the major ones that started it, but really had their big part of their career, groups like Incognito in the, early to mid 90s and so on, was when they were really flying at that time. The Brand New Heavies, lots of material going around. Seal starting off in the early 90s in terms of what he was doing. And also as well, the music that was a very, very big influence from the States that was coming over. That music that we had that time was what we considered and we called swing beat, which is what it was called at the time, which was that whole thing of, Bobby Brown. There were various groups, you had the super producer Babyface was doing what he was doing at that time. He produced a lot of, material from Whitney Houston, how many great songs, Boys to Men, material. R. Kelly was, coming in at that time. So that was that was that time when I was kind of like beginning my partying phase and also beginning my journey.
So there was still a lot of soul in the music of those days.
Most
as
definitely.
Well. Whitney Houston and Billy Joel and those guys were around back then.
Most definitely.
Sure.
People were writing quality songs. There was a movement that started kind of like mid to late 90s, which I don't know if you know about this movement, but this movement, it was called Neo Soul. And what Neo Soul was really the soul of that moment, but was all created looking back, or created through the lens of the music of the Marvin Gayes and the Teddy Pendergrasses and the Barry Whites and these artists, the Aretha Franklins, but in a new form, in a new way. So a number of artists I could list that came from that movement were people like Macy Gray. You had I don't know if you're familiar with Maxwell. He was quite very, very big in the States especially, and does have fans in Europe. People like D'Angelo, who else as well? There was India Irie, there was Erykah Badu, Jill Scott. There's a number of them, that had this music. And actually one of our artists who actually from the UK, many people don't know this, but from the UK, there was an artist who's still going now, which all of those artists from the States listened to him and then created their music, which was a gentleman by the name of Omar, who's still going now, basically, which was an alternative soul. It was an alternative back to the 70s, late 60s, 70s, 80s soul, but of the 90s. Or where they were coming from in terms of quality songs and this sort of thing,
And this movement didn't get so much traction,
it got a tremendous amount of traction. It it got a tremendous amount of traction. It was very, very big. It was like an alternate. It was, now people have this thing. They say they call it alt R&B. There's an alt R&B now. I don't know if you know this or. Which is you're
taking me into deep waters. This is
now in terms of alternative R&B, there are certain artists that it's a kind of alternative sound. Well, this neo soul that I'm talking about really was an alternative sort of R&B of the time. That it was all back to basics. It was all back to songwriting, guitars, blah blah blah. proper bands, even though they might have been synthesized music, but it was really,
But
a lot of that music was real.
They wanted to do the real thing.
That's
like
what they wanted to do.
The das Gesamtkunstwerk, like the whole art
Yeah, yeah.
deal, like writing the lyrics,
Exactly.
producing it, doing
Yeah,
it, being the artists, being the bands,
Yes.
all together.
Yes,
Yeah.
that's what happened at that time. And that was a little bit of a backlash to what was going on in the R&B of that time, which was, I call it 90s R&B, which was contemporary, quite conventional. Just that R. Kelly was a part of that and was massively successful in what he did and so on as one artist, and Mary J. Blige on the female side, if we're going to say, and so on. And those two are two from many at that time who are not still going, but those two are still going up to today, doing their own thing and what have you. But
probably they came up with not a concept is maybe the wrong word, but in a way of making this R&B music. They made kind of a blueprint probably for others to follow.
Most definitely.
So this was a way to do it, and
Yeah.
this worked, and it was maybe not so difficult to do.
Yes.
The way how the beats and things were arranged
Exactly.
is formula you can figure out in a way, and and then
Most
the
definitely.
reproduction begins. And
Most definitely. Most definitely. You know, so you got different things going on, and that was that was my time in terms of when I came into the business, you know, and starting to, you know, learn my chops vocally and studying and going to see artists where you're going to concerts. I was going to concerts before I said, yeah, you know, let me be a singer. But now you're going to concerts and you're studying. You know, you're studying people, what they do, how they do things, what is a show, you know. And then obviously there are many answers to what that thing is in terms of what a show is, but what professionalism is.
But hold on, I'm still missing something. Because for most time somebody has to like get to know of his voice, or has to discover that he can sing,
Most definitely.
or she can sing, and that there is something.
Yeah.
When was that? Because it happened, but I guess there must have been something before, maybe, where you had your musical epiphany.
Yeah, yeah. For me, it was the whole thing of as I was finding out about this business through my relative, as I say, then I started working on my voice. After a few years, at first it was fun. I enjoyed it, and I was finding out these things about it, but I hadn't made the decision yet that this is something I want to do.
But you could sing, like you picked it up, and it was something that came natural in a way for you.
No, not at all.
No?
Not at all. I had to work on it. I had to work on my craft. And this is another thing as well. This is another, in many ways, fallacy that is promoted, that the vast majority of singers, yeah, they may have something beforehand, before they've started singing or before they've worked on what they have. But the vast majority have had to, no other way to put it, have had to burst their backsides in terms of working their talent, you know, working on their voices or guitar playing or, you know, whatever instrument you're learning. It's not necessarily an easy road. And
I think maybe even the greatest genius had this phase of total dissolvement in the material, or a total focus on piano playing or whatever. You have to have that, where you lose everything around you and just be in touch with this element you're
most definitely
using.
Most definitely it's about that. And it's about, you know, there's a yes, there is a whole thing of, in music, when you look at some of the arts, when you're kind of like starting as I did, and studied it and so on, you realize that in many ways many musicians could be termed as not the most disciplined ones. Yeah, when you, for example, compare what musicians do to, say, what the dancers do, because the dancers generally, their career is far shorter. They have to work that body like 5-6 days a week. There's no getting out of it. They've got to do it, you know, to keep the body limber. all right, we can talk about various genres of dance, what you're dealing with, whether you're dealing with ballet, you're dealing with jazz or whatever. But normally dancers, they can't play games.
Yeah.
they got to do that physical discipline, yeah? Singers and musicians, well, in one sense, we don't have to do that. But in another sense, if you're serious about what you do, you've got to work it. You've got to work on your instrument. You've got to spend time. You've got to do your warm-ups. You've got to do your different things. You've got to find out about various things about your range and working on that and your breathing exercises and so on. And you may well add to that some training, and you got to go running, you know, to help your breath control. And there's all these different things that many people don't see. Yes, there are other singers. There are people who are musicians who sing, play a guitar or play the piano and sing and don't do those things that I'm mentioning. But the majority of singers, if they're going to say, I'm a professional at this, you need to create some sort of discipline in what you're doing.
Most definitely.
To work on your instrument and to take care of it and these sorts of things. It's very important.
I think discipline creates also a huge amount of safety, because you are not always on top of your game. Like
exactly.
You're sometimes you have a bad day, you have a cough, you have whatever. Your girlfriend, your boyfriend ended the relationship, whatever. And you're, but with discipline, when you have those things ingrained in you, then you always can go to them and you can perform, and maybe it's not the best of the best, but you can do it, and it's all okay for the audience, and I guess this gives the artist a feel of security as well.
Most definitely, it's very important.
Whereas when you're just the rock star and just partying, then sooner or later the crash comes, and you see that in some pop stars. You can even see the deterioration in some way, where they lose the discipline, and that's where I love so much those really old show horses like Tina Turner, for instance. Or
I was thinking about her when you was talking about that.
Really,
she came to mind because she's one of those great examples of how she was able to hold herself, what she did, and it was because of her discipline.
Yes.
Why she was so successful and able to sustain her success. This is the thing.
Till 73 or something. Still rocking, dancing with the cheeks, the hips here. Maybe not so exaggerated, maybe a little bit more ladylike.
Yes.
But it's everything's there still. It's crazy.
She's a great example. She's actually, for me, one of those people that I study. Yeah. She's one of those people that I study in terms of her work ethic. You know, she had a work ethic that was second to none in terms of how she did a show. And she's one of these people. I know there's many shows that she's done, and I haven't seen all of her shows, but there's one particular show from her which I love watching. I've got the DVD, and I love watching this show. It's on YouTube. People can check it out if they want to, if you haven't got the DVD. But it's a lovely example. It's Tina Turner. She did this show in 1988, I believe. It was 88 or 89. At the time, it was the biggest stadium show ever done. It was in Rio, and it was, I believe it was 190,000 people. God. You know? And the greatest thing about it is, all right, there's all these people there, but that's not the greatest thing about why this is my favorite show. It's my favorite show because it's such a great example of a performer comes, gives their all. There's no tricks. The vocal is there. She's sustaining an intensity of what she's doing. Obviously, she had an amazing band around her, superb band. But a performer being able to really, at the top of their game, the woman is sustaining in that show, excuse me, in terms of every single song, vocally, what she's doing, telling the stories. She's dancing at the same
every
time.
Every move is perfect. Everything.
She was
every gesture. She
was phenomenal.
Yeah.
She was phenomenal.
Yeah.
And as we like to say in the business, she didn't play games. She was on her business. you know, but yet still such a lovely person,
Yeah.
you know, someone who she loved. It was the love. What you see in that concert, and for me, whenever she performs, is you see and you feel the love
Yeah.
for what she was doing.
Yeah.
And that,
This is what transcends.
Yes.
That's why there are 190,000 people.
Exactly. And that for me is the main reason why I do this. You know, if you don't have the love for what you do, if you don't have that love in this is my thing, you won't survive.
Yeah.
You won't survive in the music business.
Yeah.
If you just want to be a star, you know, there's some people who quote unquote are in the business because they just want to be a star or they just want to be famous. Yeah. If that's the reason why you're in it, personally, I would say get out now.
I even think it's a majority because the business is wired this way. Like stars are created faster by every year, and the record companies, they just need new food, so to speak, in order to produce output, in order to sell, and so many bands are created with concepts. They are just made up, and there is no love whatsoever in all those things. And yeah, but for me, that's all that makes a difference. For me, as a customer, someone who listens to it, and you can feel this quality. And some of this quality I was brought to by my parents, and you get a feel for it. But once you have a feel for it, you don't lose it. You always want to have it. You can distinct between what it's good and maybe what's not so good.
Most definitely.
Without judging, but you can feel the realness, and this is what it makes. And also, I don't know, Freddie Mercury also, like
Most
this
definitely.
guy, it was crazy.
Yeah. He loved what he was doing.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah,
he wrote all the songs.
Yeah,
he was
yeah.
a terrific singer. Everything. It's crazy.
That was one of the major things.
Yeah. Could you come a bit closer to that?
Sorry.
No problem.
You've hit on a great example there with Freddie Mercury, because what I get, in a sense, Freddie Mercury is an equivalent of a Tina Turner, exactly in his own way of what he's doing. Why? Tina Turner, for me, in all of her recordings, there's only conviction. There's nothing else. There's no half measure. Yeah? And also in the performance. Freddie is the same thing. All his recordings, what I love about him is that he's always telling his story. He sang his heart out, the guy. And when he was on stage, it was exactly the same. When he did his stage show, he didn't mess about. You know, that's why to me he influenced so many different people. You know,
you even had the feeling those people they couldn't wait to get on stage.
Oh yeah, definitely. This is where, for example, I'm not a big fan of the Rolling Stones, for example, but I've got so much respect for Mick Jagger and what they do. Why? I mean, check this out. I mean, I'm not sure what his age is now. What is he now? 74?
Something like that.
You know? Now, he doesn't look like he's giving it up anytime soon.
Still having 25-year-old girlfriends.
You know, he's doing his thing, but it's what travels is it's the love. The guy just absolutely he loves it. Yeah. He absolutely loves what he's doing.
And you can't buy that, and nobody can take it from you.
Yeah. He loves it. He loves it, and that's the thing. He gets up there. He still wants to do what he's doing. The band is still doing their thing. You know, I heard recently that Elton John's on a farewell tour or something.
I heard that
he's on a farewell tour, whether it's 2 years or 3 years before he's gonna quit and so on. And he's saying that it's the family. I get that. I don't know. Well, maybe he will. Maybe he will let it go. Maybe he will. Maybe he won't. You know. I mean, for example, I don't. For example, with Mick Jagger, I don't know. Maybe he's going to do it until he drops.
Probably.
Could well be.
Yeah.
Could well be. So.
With Elton John, could be like a setup. You say you quit. You know that you don't quit, but it gives you the chance to give not one farewell tour, but maybe 2 or 3.
Yeah.
Maybe it's
Could be.
something like that.
Could
I don't
be,
know.
you know.
Yeah.
I mean, they said it's going to be 2 or 3 years. It might be 4 or 5 years. I don't know. But it's just the love. People having that love for what they're doing, and to me, that's the criteria of the artists that I love to listen to and learn from, and try and gauge something. And that also includes, there may well be genres of music or various artists that I'm not necessarily a fan of, but I'm going to check them out just to see what, you know, if I admire or into their way of doing what they do, even if it might not be the music that I like. There's something that you can learn there, and that I think is an important thing.
Absolutely.
In terms of like learning and always wanting to find out more.
Yeah.
You know, so.
No, I definitely think it's the basis, and also this old school discipline. Like in the 50s, when probably Tina Turner was a young girl and she came into the business or whatsoever, I think there was a huge competition back then. Like it wasn't DJing or something, wasn't the thing. There were people actually singing in clubs and in bars and in all the bars down the road. So there was a lot going on. There was a lot of competition, and you just could perform in a bar if you really could sing. There wasn't all this fancy gimmicks that we have today. So you really had to bring it.
Exactly.
And to a large degree, to an overproportional degree, there were black people in this music business, because it was a way to get out of their situation. And
most definitely.
And they were like, they didn't play games, as you said. They were, this is bum 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 bum. Or what's living in a man.
You're reading my mind again. James Brown.
Brown.
And he had that reputation. He had a reputation.
He was fining his musicians for everything they did wrong.
Exactly.
And this was like total.
That's why his bands were always the tightest. That's why he was always
this
the
sharpness
master.
also in his playing and everything.
That's why he was the master of what he was doing. Because at the end of the day, he knew that was his way out. He wasn't an educated man in the quote unquote traditional sense. But he was very, very educated from the perspective of working hard at what he had, maximizing that as much as possible.
Because you don't have a second chance.
That's the whole thing. So you got to cut it. You've got to be able to cut it, you know? And we look at the lineage of that. The lineage of, when you mention a James, the lineage is a Prince. The lineage is a Michael.
The lineage is even house and techno.
Exactly.
All the repetition and the things. It's
you know? And, you know, those artists, as well as we know, they didn't mess about. Prince did not. Prince was serious. He did, that guy didn't mess about. Michael Jackson didn't mess about. How they rehearsed, wanting to work on their craft, whether it's writing the songs, whether it's working on the voice, whether it's what's the concept going to be on the new show, etc. So what we're going back to, when you mention the whole thing about, but people say, what ability someone has. Ability is a percentage thing, which I think generally is at a low percentage. But when you just repeat something, you do it long enough, you're going to master that thing. And that's to me the ethic of you know, how you do this thing. So
there's also the story with about Picasso and the dove. Picasso, actually, he wasn't a good painter at all. He wasn't like a gifted painter who saw something and he could put it within seconds on paper and everybody saw it and knew it and said, oh my gosh, that's terrific. So he struggled painting doves or pigeons or whatever it was. So he painted like 1,000 and I don't know what the number, 1,500, but something around that, till he perfected it. Because he was fixated with, oh God, why can't I do this dove? It doesn't work. So he went for that till in the end, and he was a very young artist or beginning, and it was repetition. It was just repetition. It was going over and over again, and in the end, you become the pigeon. It just flows out of your
I think so.
hand
I
without
think so.
thinking, or with singing probably it's the same
Yeah.
same thing.
It is a similar sort of viewpoint. And then obviously, yeah, over the time, there are times where you work more on what you're doing and then you work less. But then when you get focused on things, you've got to be on top of it.
Yeah.
To look to become better. It's always about working to become better, and so on. And yeah, it's been a great journey. It's been a great journey when you look back and you see some of the things that you've done and so on. And
I imagine,
yeah,
like,
it's been a great journey.
you fulfilled to a wide extent,
Most
like a
definitely.
dream, kind of.
Most definitely,
Yeah.
most definitely. You know, I'm doing shows and people are coming, you know, paying to come and see me, and so on, and enjoying what I'm doing, and that is progressing and that's getting bigger, and I'm, you know, working on original material, looking to release some material later on this year.
Mm-hmm.
So there's, you know, the whole thing of putting something like that together, looking at a possible tour, how that would work, and progressing, and, you know, most importantly, loving what you're doing. That's the whole thing, and wanting to find out more about what you're doing, and how to make it better, and how to enjoy it. That's the main thing. You carry enjoyment into what you're doing. That's what I'm learning more and more. Yes, there is an enjoyment that you get from doing it, but you carry enjoyment into it.
Yeah.
So it's not about, when I was younger, my career was more to do with wanting to get to a particular place, wanting to get there, quote unquote, wanting to make it, whatever making it is in your thinking. And I learned that wasn't necessarily the way. You know, I learned that it was about enjoying the journey. And that's a completely 180 degree turn in terms of how that feels. You know, it feels so much better enjoying yourself along the way rather than trying to struggle to get to a place. Because when you do that, when you get to quote unquote that place, wherever it is, you still won't be happy, you know. So it's about trying to create some sort of happiness within yourself and with what you're doing on a daily basis. That's what's important.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it's also the good long-term strategy, the healthy strategy as well.
Oh, yeah.
The nachhaltig, what's the word? Like self-sustainable in a way.
Yeah.
With quick success, very often there comes the quick downfall, or the expectations, or whatever. So to build something, to do it, to make it happen, and then repeat it, as we said, repetition, maybe to the next album or whatever. And
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. I think that's why, maybe a topic we might not have been thinking of talking about when it comes to the music industry or the arts, is that there are, in certain ways, the arts or music gets a bad name because people talk about, well, a lot of these artists and different people, they take drugs, they take this, they take that, or whatever. And this is, I think, partly why artists take things.
of course,
Because
totally,
they're searching for that high again,
yeah,
whether it was the last show or the last tour or and so on or whatever. But then this is where a lot of those artists that we love, they learn along the way, and they realize that high, what is that high? That's a part of it, their lives, but let's have a balanced life here in terms of, or more balanced life with your family and so on, and other things that you maybe enjoy, or yes, this is what you love, but you don't necessarily take it as seriously as you did because you might have had some health problems or whatever. Then you've learned about it, and then you say, well, let me put some more balance in my life, you know. So
I think the trick is to be able to detach from things. If it if it benefits you, and it definitely benefits you to detach from your rock star ego, if you're with your little daughter, for instance, or your wife, or whatever. So you just can't be this person, and I'm pretty sure also Tina Turner wasn't all the time the person we saw.
It's an illusion,
of
isn't
course.
it? You're creating an illusion.
Yeah.
Most people, you're on stage, you are a character. It's an aspect of your personality, and so on, but not the complete you. It's never going to be the complete you. It's only what a side of you. So you need other things. You need other things to be balanced as a person. So,
But you're totally right. There's a certain funny element about this uncertainty that drugs create, that this additional element that is brought into the equation in the music business. For some crazy reason, there are so many stars that take things or took things or died or whatever, and it's almost intertwined in some strange way. I even believe that young singers who wouldn't take drugs or don't take drugs start to take drugs because they want to become a singer. Oh, of course I have to do that as well, because it's part of the thing, and everyone's doing it, so I'm doing it as well.
Most definitely. I think that can be an element of it, and this is where you need guidance. Everybody needs guidance. You need the right people. You need the right people around you, and so on. And it is about enjoying what you're doing. It's about having a lot of fun doing what you're doing. But obviously, you need to know what's really good for you, on the long-term level and long-term basis. And that's why you need those right people to guide.
Totally.
And to be there and so on. Myself, I feel pretty blessed that I have very, very good people around me to be there to actually tell you the truth about things when you're doing great things, or your show's great or whatever, but when it's losing it a little bit, or that you're working yourself. I really do believe that as human beings we are a work in progress.
Absolutely.
Not everybody sees it that way, and but for me it's important to understand how you can better yourself and how you can learn from your past mistakes, because we're all going to make them in one way or another, so
No, I think you need some anchors, some people who call you out, who are your friends.
Oh yeah, definitely.
and
not everybody's saying, oh yeah, it's all perfect, everything. No, that's not the way.
That's actually maybe a sign where you should get a bit cautious. And
Exactly.
Hey, hang on,
Yes.
who are you exactly? That's telling me that I'm the best.
So I love this business. I've been in it a long time now, and I love what I'm doing. So,
and you love performing as well. You love staying there and doing your thing.
Yeah, definitely.
For me, I'm not a stage person. I did some things. I worked as a puppeteer for a couple of years and did thousands of plays and do a little bit voice work. But I'm not in any comparison, in any stretch of imagination, a stage person as you are. But what did I want to ask you? I totally lost track. No. But for me, because I'm not this stage person, for me there was always something special about going to a theater, watching someone perform. For me, it was always a mystery of how do they do that?
Yeah,
how does it work?
Definitely.
It's like, how is this even possible? How is this person so free? Why doesn't he or she freak out or shit his pants? Because if you're on a stage, some serious things are happening. It's actually even like going in front of a group is back in our our tribe years. We it was a dangerous thing to go in front of a group. They might end up killing you if you said the wrong thing or if you do something. So there are crazy things going on, and so for me it's always fascinating. A person having and taking this liberty and being who he or she is. It was always a great thing for me, and I got a little bit behind it. Went a little bit to theaters and so on, and did very small things. But I just wanted to get behind the secret a little bit.
All right. Okay.
And so the question for me is. Do you still, is there still a special element for you as an artist there as well, or does it wear off at some point, or is it maybe different each day? I don't know.
Yes, it can be. It can be different every time. There are occasions. I mean, like in the past, there was a time where it did wear off a little bit for me. Because there was a period of time that I was maybe working too much, you know? So I stopped that, and now I'm, doing exactly what I want to do. And that's a great feeling, because what you find, there's many people in the business who are maybe doing things they don't want to do, doing shows that they don't want to do. And it can turn into, well, because you're making your living and so on, and you may well do certain things that you didn't necessarily want to do and so on. But when you're actually doing what you want to do, in terms of doing that particular show that you want to do and that audience that you want to do it for, there's just nothing better than that. Because my thing is, there's different shows that I've done in my career. But the kind of show that I really enjoy is when you're with an audience for, say, about an hour or an hour, 15 minutes, hour and a half, and you really get to spend time with them. You really get to not just sing songs, you get to really talk to them, and interact. And yes, you've got a show that you've rehearsed, which has parts that's rehearsed in there that you may have done before, but with every audience it can end up being different, and that you have that opportunity to communicate with them. Whereas there's other shows that I've done which were what we call a PA show, which in a PA show you only maybe do 2 songs or something, or 3 songs, and then that's it. And it's not that those shows that I never liked them, but it's not the same for me. Like when you're on the stage and you're doing a really proper show, where you can really communicate and get into the material that you're doing, and when you're on the stage for that amount of time, you can really get the chance to open up as a performer. Open up to your audience, but also vocally you feel really get in there.
Comfortable, you're acquainted with the people, with the crowd, and you feel and there's this exchange going on between you and them and so on. Whereas when you do these short shows, not that there's none of that, but it's very much in and out, and normally when you do those kind of shows, they're normally a full playback situation where you are singing live, but it's over pre-recorded music and so on. Whereas when you have the live band and you have the full live band and you're doing your thing, I like doing pre-recorded music as well, because I have various shows that I'll do that with, but normally it's with another live instrument or so on working with me. That's great. And then you've obviously got the full band situation where there's a lot of that real interaction happening between the whole band and an audience. And that's something else, and that's lovely to do. And that's what I love to do. And that was actually what was the main inspiration for becoming a singer, because it was when I saw various artists that I saw. I remember, I've seen how many people, but one very, very distinct for me was when I saw Luther Vandross a couple of times. And he really did a kind of show that when you saw him, he gave you like everything. It was, you had the vocal, you had the band, it was the background singers, it was the costumes, it was the lighting,
It was the conversation in between. It was the stories. It was your program that you had at the end. You know, like in those days, you had a full program, which was like a booklet of all these like lovely photos of the artists, which if you were lucky enough, you'd maybe be able to get them to sign it for you, and so on, all this sort of thing. You know, so it was really a whole composite of what seeing that person was, and at the end of it, you felt great, you know. And to me, that's what being an artist is as well. In a sense, you're a servant, you're a healer. That's partly, you know, my job is when people come to the show, that whatever problems they have, you know, they may have had an argument with their boss earlier on in the day, or with their wife or husband, or, you know, whatever happened that wasn't so nice, that they forget all of that for an hour and a half, and they feel better, you know.
But that is, in fact, magic and healing. This is what the medicine men back in the days did. This is changing the perception of reality. This is using things like acoustic things like drumming and changing it in a way that it makes sense and conveying a story. This is actually the essence of magic, of and those are people who serve the community. They have a purpose in the community, that the community gives them also their place for that, because it's a very, very important function.
It is. It really is.
And I could imagine that the way you describe it and the way you also the way I feel you now is that I guess at a certain point it's also not only you giving out, but maybe also the band, of course.
Most definitely.
But also the audience
gives
something. So when you're really into it and it goes back and forth and they applaud and want more, maybe an additional song or something, then it goes either way, I think. And then it's like love making or something.
It's a lovely thing.
Yeah.
It's a lovely, lovely thing to be able to give and to receive in that way. And that is actually one of the, I think, reasons why I'm still doing what I'm doing and I'm still enjoying it, because the more you focus on that is the more you get from it, you know, and that's the biggest thing for me. Yeah. It's what you're able to give and what you're able to receive. And I think the more you focus on that is the better things become, you know. And
absolutely,
yeah, you just focus on it and enjoy the process. Don't think that you know it all. Don't think that, oh well, it's a privilege to do what I do. It's a complete privilege. As I said, you know, people pay to come and see me, and you know, they could have been doing anything on that evening. They could have been anywhere. They could have been doing anything at home or whatever, but they want to spend that time to come and see something, you know. And that, for me, that's a wonderful thing. It's a wonderful thing to be a part of, and that's how I started this journey. I could have only dreamed that I would have been able to do that. You know, when I first saw, as I said,
your relative,
you know, my cousin at the time, or you know, seeing various artists that you get to see over the years, and just wishing that you'd be able to do that, and that would actually happen. It's a wonderful. It's a dream come true. It's a dream come true.
No, it's beautiful. You know? That's all what it's about in life. I think fulfillment, the pursuit of happiness, and you can relate this to any other field, whatever you want to do. You want to become a mechanic because you just love cars and motors. Yeah. Just go for it and do it and keep the essence pure. Yeah. Yeah.
This is the whole thing, and the curiosity, that's important. I really, you know, I've learned that it's the curiosity. Still be curious about how certain things work.
Yeah. Be a child.
Yeah, it's really, it's really, 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 really important, you know. And that also, that whole thing of the doing something that you love as well, it keeps that inner child. You know, your inner child is alive and is excited about what you're doing, and that's just, to me, these are the reasons why. These are the reasons why I'm in it. Yes, there are those classic things in our business, you know, what they attach to it. They said, you know, the sex, drugs, and rock and roll, which they attach to the business of music. But really, I personally believe my main thing is that if you're in it and you're going to be in this thing for a while, then there has to be something a lot deeper than that as to why you do it. Because there's lots of other things, reasons why you could say why you wouldn't, you know, because there are loads of things which the audience are not supposed to know, but the things that you need to do as an artist to do what you do.
Well, of course
there's loads of things about promotion, about all these different things that need to be done.
Of course, there are many things that are not enjoyable, I imagine, that take your energy and so on.
You know, but it makes it all worthwhile.
Yeah. If I may ask, because it's something in the future, and you're working on your own material, can you tell us something, or at least maybe what inspires you, or what it's about, or the direction it's heading? And if you don't want to talk about
well, it's okay. My thing of I'm really discovering. I'm discovering at the moment what it's going to be. I can say at the moment my thinking and my feeling is that it really is going to be a combination of old and new in various ways. Whether we talk about the 70s or we talk about the 90s, and also looking at, you know, what are the current music trends in terms of what's happening. And then that means really creating something, trying to create something that's new, and it's not new because there are those, you know, as I mentioned, 70s, 90s and so on, but a new formulation of what's already been done, but in your own way, you know, in your own form of expression, which there may well be some new sounds there mixed together with some old sounds or what have you, or you're looking at what sort of subject matter you're going to be writing about. Obviously we have our classic topic in terms of love, but how we're going to approach that a bit differently. And yeah, that's where I'm at the moment. I'm really looking now at trying to find what is my Jawara sound, you know, if it's such a thing, and so on, and what that would entail in terms of what I'm going to be talking about, and how is it going to sound. That's where I'm at right now, and it's an exciting time. It's scary as well, as well as exciting. You're trying to find out who are you, you know, right now, and where would you like to go, and what would you like to put out there from the perspective of making the audience feel a particular way, you know, and enjoy in a particular way. So that's where I'm at right now, I would say. You know, that's going to take a little while in terms of like finding that. And then, you know, hopefully looking at releasing some material later on in the year. So,
but that's quite ambitious. So end of the year.
What's important is that you know what some of the elements are, and before the end of the year, I'm looking at, say, maybe 2 or 3 songs, no more than that, really. Yeah. An album. If I was looking at an album, I'm not looking at album really until 2019 at the earliest in terms of album. But 2 or 3 singles or a small EP, it's more than doable. You know, when you're just looking at, say, 2 or 3 songs. But if you're looking at album, you definitely need more time, you know. But it all depends. If you've got a good team, and if you've found that direction, for example, I may well have done the first, say, 2 or 3 songs, and then as that's put out and that's like going well,
and then the spirit carries on.
The spirit carries on, and it might not take so long to do the rest. Because you really know where you're going.
That's what he wants.
And it just,
they know,
exactly, and it just comes out. Yeah. You know, so you've got to be open to both of those sides in terms of how things can work. And yeah.
But it starts with you from what you've said. So it's you're the main center. There's you claim the creative absolute.
Yeah, it's about
power
a vision.
of-
It's about a
of what you-
vision. It's about a vision. I've got a vision of what I'm doing, and yes, I have a producer that I'm working with who we're kind of like sharing this vision. The producer and myself, we're sharing this vision, and we're clarifying what it is. We're clarifying what are the elements, what are the important elements of what needs to go into this cake, as it were, and we're saying, well, how much sugar should be in there, how much flour, do you need some milk in there, etc., and we're looking really to create our individual cake. It might, it's going to be maybe Morn cake versus Gugelhof. In terms of what it's going to be and so on, but our own version of that, and then working with other people in terms of them understanding the vision of what we're trying to create. I'm kind of like looking at some, because I'm writing, but we'll be looking at some co-writers and so on. Might be going to Germany, do some writing there, or writing with other people in Austria. But you got to share that vision with them in terms of what you're going for, so in certain parts, not to get too deep, but I'm saying to myself, well, who is the gentleman of soul? What is that about? What does that represent? And so on. What topics maybe I might want to talk about that would represent that? So these are some of the things that you start to look at. So
you're writing your texts by yourself and the notes as well?
No.
How do you work?
I focus more so on lyrics. In terms of a lyricist, but also musically, I have a big input musically on what sort of sound we're going for, listening and getting clearer about what I like and what I want to put out there. So I get ideas from people. They say, well, what do you think about this? What do you think about that? But also as well, I'm bringing ideas, because a lot of times if I'm writing songs, I hear what the band is doing. Even though I don't play other instruments, but I hear what the bass is doing.
Yeah.
I hear what the drums are doing. I hear what the guitars are doing. I hear what the strings are doing, and so on and so forth. And then we work together with the producer, how we're gonna. Oh right, okay, yeah, that's the sound I'm going for, and that. Oh yeah, that's great. And that's how we make the cake. We make the cake, and obviously with lyrics, I write myself, but also as well when you get together with other lyricists, you're doing stuff in terms of what you're writing a song. What is your story? What is this about? What do you want to say? And so on. So these are some of the things, and it's a journey. You're always learning about it. Yeah. You're always learning. So working with new people now, I'm learning. So even more. So
you're in the kitchen right now. So
yeah.
A little bit from here, from there, and you're doing your cake.
Yeah, most definitely.
As you said.
Most definitely. So and what I'm learning more and more is that you have a picture in mind, but you still got to keep open.
Yeah.
You have a vision, this is what you're doing, but then it can switch. So you got to be open to some other things.
Because maybe it gets even better.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. These are the elements, could be adding something, because sometimes as well, we as artists, we say we want to create something new, but we don't.
No, we want to do something we maybe already know even
exactly.
better.
Yes.
At ours, yeah.
And
I think a big part of art creation is, I wouldn't say copying, it might be too hard of a word, but it's taking from someone and reinvent it, redo it, bring it in a different shape, in another context, or whatever. The whole, if you analyzing, if you study the history of arts, it's just that. It's and then it's a continuum where one leads to the other.
Yeah.
And so I think there's nothing bad.
No, it's good. It's good.
To look what's happening, to incorporate and be a vessel where things can flow through. And
I agree completely. That's what it's about. You know, none of us are necessarily, which you can do, but for the most part, we don't create in a vacuum. You know, we're influenced by things, and it's about, there are certain influences that we have that we know what those influences are. There are other influences that are subliminal that we don't necessarily know where they come from, but you're being influenced by.
Yeah.
But either way, we are. And then you look at how you can maybe sneak something in there or add some things that really define it as, you know, you, if possible, and where you're coming from or what you've added to it. And this is the thing I think, you know, you can look for, and just try and be open. Try and be as open as you can. Not always easy. It's not always easy, but you need to try.
But it's a beautiful process, I think. If you in the end get something, it must be very, very rewarding. So yeah, that's me.
Yeah.
That's very much of me, at least.
Most definitely.
And maybe it's even there when I'm gone.
Well, you see,
no, you don't have. You know, it's not.
No, well, it's a lovely
about that. It's not about being eternal or immortal, but
it's a lovely thing to know that you can contribute to something. You can contribute, because many times I do think to myself, well, I pretty much know that when Barry White wrote the song "You're My First, My Last, My Everything," I'm pretty sure that he never would have thought that, you know, over 40 years later, people would be enjoying that song all around the world. I'm pretty sure that he didn't necessarily think that, you know, but I'm sure he would have loved to know that. He would have loved to know that, and loved to know that, let me get this straight now, he's been gone now 15 years. So 15 years after his passing, people are still enjoying that song. You know, how many years after that will people continue to enjoy that song? That must be a wonderful thing, that you've created something that has given so many people so much pleasure, you know.
Or if you think about Mozart or something,
yes,
guys, 200, 300 years ago,
and it's
still there. It's still
amazing. It's just an amazing thing. It's an amazing thing.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, I think so.
They do say...
I mean, in some way Mozart still exists, because with the music you can go right into the consciousness of the composer in some way. So, yeah.
I agree with you on that. And I read something a few weeks back, which they said that the artists are the dreamers of every time, you know, in terms of humanity, that they are, of every time there is that present time, they are the dreamers, which we need those dreamers that makes our lives bearable from the perspective of them wanting to create something that will maybe transport people somewhere or give people a good feeling and so on. And for me personally, I didn't come into it for that reason necessarily to begin with, but to maybe be a small part or play a small role in someone's life where they feel good over that time, as I said, over the show, or they've heard a record or they've played a record and, you know, they've loved it and so on. That for me, that's a wonderful thing, to be able to, you know, be a part of something like that.
And I think that happens actually very, very often. I mean, if I think about myself and also others, like, how often does it happen when you're, I don't know, a bit sentimental, or you're thinking about something, or maybe with your girlfriend or whatever, and there's a song on the radio, or maybe you're choosing even a particular song for that reason, and you go into that, and this catapults you right into a certain state, and you're just there, and that's a beautiful thing.
Oh yeah. Lots of those times and so on, and yeah, it's lovely. I love music.
Really?
Yeah. Didn't you realize? Yeah.
Do you follow also the Austrian scene, like what's happening, the stars? I don't very much, to be honest, but like, I don't know, Andreas Gabalier or like the typical local heroes.
Most definitely.
Do you also do you have an interest in
my time? It's been a very interesting time here in Austria. I've learned a lot about the folks music, about Austropop and so and the Fendricks, the Ambrose, Danza, Stephanie Vierga, different, obviously, which we mentioned earlier, Falco, and so on. And there's a lot to learn from that. It's been an interesting thing for me.
What do you get from that? You being from this British cultural background, how does it feel? Like, are we crazy or what?
No, not at all. It's you've got your own music that you're listening to. Obviously, most of those artists that I mentioned there, they're singing in Deutsch, which is it's your mother tongue, which as it should be as well. And then there are obviously other German or Austrian artists that are singing in English as well, and it's just interesting finding out about the scenes, about the way things go here, about the different scenes, about, it was very interesting for me, if you think about it from my perspective, when I'm first hearing someone singing in dialect, firstly people singing in Deutsch, which that's new for me, but then finding out there's people who are singing in a dialect.
So they're singing in English, but with a German dialect. That's
no,
what I mean.
no.
In German dialect. Okay.
Yes, in German dialect and so on, the different accents and so on. And to be honest, there's many of the dialect singers, there's many of the things that they're singing. There's certain things that over time now I've learned, I understand them. But depending on who it is, sometimes they're singing, I haven't got a clue what they're talking about, to be honest. I understand certain words, but I don't understand everything or certain things,
But that's normal. If you would take a Swiss person and play this song, they also wouldn't have a clue because it's German-speaking country, but it's different accent, different dialect, and therefore,
But there was a lot to learn there about these different scenes. What happens? People have it's like everything everywhere else as well. People have their fans. Certain people they have their fans. They are fans of that kind of music. Yes, there are people who are fans of whether it be Austropop or various other folks music and so on. But they do like other things as well. They do like English speaking music as well,
of course,
or different types, and so it's about different tastes. Everybody different tastes. As we say in English, horses for courses, people liking different things and they're into it. And I found out about certain people that have their lyrical approaches to what they're doing, which, as I say, I don't understand all the stories, but my wife fills me in about, she said to me stuff like, who was it? Tanzer was more an intellectual. From what I've been told, he was more of an intellectual where he was coming from, and not to say that Ambrose doesn't have great lyrics, because he does, but he's got a particular way he puts it across, and
this down to earth,
you see,
dialect,
and so on. So that has all been very, very interesting for me. Checking out Falco songs. My first German speaking album I bought was Falco. All the Falco hits from the 80s, this whole sort of thing. I bought a little bit of Udo Jürgens, checked him out, Mr. Udo on piano, so it's
with the robe.
Yes. So it's all interesting for me, and it's a completely different, obviously, language.
Yeah.
culturally very, very different, but very interesting for me because it's something else.
I guess it must be funny from time to time. I imagine
it
you
is.
see something that's maybe new for you. And
Yes.
must be incredible.
Yeah. And there's a whole musically. There's always a culture that goes along with the kind of music that people are doing and what they're into and so on. So one of the first things that kind of like caught me about the Austropop scene, as it were, was it was very interesting that I kind of like really got a feeling of there's very much a kind of what we would say tongue-in-cheek way that people perform the songs. So what I mean by that is a lot of the songs seem to be about a story, something that happened to the singer, the singer or the guitarist, and they're telling a story, and it's really conjuring up this vision of what happened and so on, and very much about storytelling, you know. And the whole thing of storytelling, like the culture I'm from, is very much about storytelling, you know. Black British culture, Caribbean culture, it's all about storytelling. It's all about, you know, we have our own music over there, you know, which is, calypso music. This sort of thing was all about stories. It was all about stories, what was happening to the person, but also what was happening in the community. Different things that was happening in the community. Did you see that? You know, did you know what happened? And some of them were political as well, but also just general day-to-day stories and covering all different sorts of topics, you know.
And you get the sense also from the Austrian
music, they're covering that. They're covering all different sorts of topics. Some can be political. Some is about the girlfriend or the wife or what happened. Some is about society things, all different sorts of topics you could think of. Some of them very funny, you know, others more serious. You've got everything there in between. So, you know,
what I find, and I might be wrong, is that back in the days, in the 60s, 70s, 80s, Austropop, the density of singer-songwriters was much higher than it is today. Like, also this concept with the band writing their songs, doing the material, creating something unique. I don't know, I think the density was so high back then. You had them all, and within a decade, several of them, the Dancer and all those people you mentioned. And I don't see so much from that caliber right now, to be honest. Here and there, or every 2 or 3 years, someone pops up, like Silent Pair and so on. But I don't know. I think it has lost a little bit of steam. I think also more Englishification. I don't know. This word exists, but like this. Back in the day, the majority were German spoken, and now the vast majority is English spoken. Also, of course, because it's pushed by record labels, and they want to sell their things they produce on an international level, influence radio stations and so on. So there was a little bit cultural loss, I think, but everything comes in circles. I'm sure it's
I think you've got a point there. I just think in general, we live in a time where maybe a lot of the people around now don't focus as much as the artists from the past did. Maybe they don't. Maybe we haven't got so many that live their craft like they used to. You know, in terms of like songwriters really spending the time.
There was a super cool YouTube video I found. It was called "Rappers and Autotune." And it's crazy. And they showed the amateur video from the guy who was recording in the recording studio with like just a mic from the mobile, and then they showed the end product, and it's like 2 different sides, and there's none of all those things we've been talking, like craftsmanship and putting the energy in and really learning your craft and singing. And so I think there is this element of quick money, of following a blueprint of doing not quality art.
No, I agree with you. That's something that exists.
Yeah.
It's something that's there and so on. I think that you're always going to have that. You're always going to have that. It's one of those things that it depends what sort of person you are and what you want to do. It's all about choices.
Yeah, and actually, you're totally right. It has always existed. For instance, back in the day, Mozart. I'm a little bit of a classical music buff, so there are no more than soul, for instance. But Mozart, for instance, he wasn't very well known or even successful as a composer during his lifespan when he was alive. He did a lot of parties. He was this genius. Everyone knew, this guy is special, but he didn't adapt. He wanted to do his own things, and he composed all the time. But all those things, they were just maybe used for once because he wrote it for a rich person, and so that there wasn't this collective awareness of this Mozart. And just after his death, things came out, because the real art, I think, withstands the test of time, and that's filter also. Only the best things
definitely
survive the generations. That's where you can measure it. So, and I think with nowadays music, it's exactly the same. There is good music and good music that will last, and those qualities that transcend that result from the work, from the energy, from the love, from all those things.
No, I agree. I do agree. Time is the test.
Yeah.
Time is the test.
What are your, if you wanna tell us something, do you have any next concerts you want to talk about, or maybe promote a little bit, or tell where people can get cards or tickets or something?
Actually,
I don't know, it's a little bit of
something here. Wait a second.
Yeah.
Wait a minute. I have a little something here.
Ah, nice.
So, I have this here. I've got a couple of shows coming up. One in April, 28th of April, and the other show the 30th of May at the Eden Bar. This is in the First District. And the tickets are available from Wien Ticket. They're already available. People can purchase those. And so on, and those are my next two shows. Upcoming show, which that's myself with a live saxophonist and singing songs from Barry White, Luther Vandross, Gregory Porter, and also my own original material as well. So those are my next two shows coming up. And apart from that, I'm writing at the moment. Just writing.
You're deep in the work.
Yeah, just getting things together. Making that pie.
Cool. But for everyone who wants to see Jawara, next dates 28th of April and the 30th of May at the very, very famous, well-known burlesque, we can say that?
Yes.
Eden Bar.
No longer burlesque, formerly burlesque.
Formerly burlesque. But I think they still have this... puffy,
it has the look, it
Yeah.
still has the look from that time, and lots of people enjoy that.
Yeah.
In terms of the look and so on, and we do have a lovely, lovely atmosphere there.
I think it fits your
it's
style
a
of
lovely
music.
atmosphere.
I think
We've done a number of shows there over the last year and a half and so on, and they've all gone down very, very well, and people do enjoy it, and I really do enjoy performing there, and we have a lovely atmosphere. The sound is lovely as well, so people can really get to hear everything and so on, and it's a lovely show.
First District, always also a good audience or interesting audience as well in the First District.
The people come for the music. The people really enjoy the music, and they want to have a good time as well, and so they can sit down and really take it in. But also as well, because we have the show in 2 parts. The second part of the show, we have a little bit more of a party vibe going on. So if people want to get on the floor and have some fun, they can do that as well.
So you're building it up.
Yeah, that's what we do. And it's good fun. It's good fun. I really enjoy doing the show there. So
nice, great.
Mm-hmm.
So everybody who wants to go there goes to wienticket.at. Jawara also has a homepage, as I can see right now.
Yes.
Jawara.at.
Jawara.at. Yeah, you can get me on there. And so on. I'm also on Instagram. I'm on the old Instagram as well.
And Facebook.
And so, Instagram, Facebook. And I'm just actually starting a YouTube channel now as well. So I've got certain videos that are going to be collated on there shortly, and doing a little bit of a video diary and different things like that. So
that's a cool idea.
Yeah, it's time.
I guess
it's time now. So.
Yeah, that's the world we live in.
Yep,
we have to. All right then, we have 1.5 hours in. I think that's
cool.
Quite all right.
I enjoyed it.
I enjoyed it very, very much. Really, it was a great time.
Thanks for inviting me.
Thanks for coming. Very, very nice, very warm, and it's always a great thing to talk to and to experience someone who loves what he's doing, and I think that certainly fits to you and this talk we had. So
pleasure.
Thank you.
Pleasure. Thanks so much, Thomas.
Thank you. I just give a quick shout out to my sponsor, limedition.at. Online store for fantastic jewelry. They work with natural material, smooth things, leather, special leather things. You can find everything on limedition.at, limedition.at, and they have a minus 60% thing going on, a kick-off promotion. So really good prices. Go there, check it out, and don't forget in the promo code Tom Herzog podcast, if you insert this, then you get another minus 20%. All right. Again, thank you for a wonderful podcast.
Pleasure.
And all the best to you.
Thank you so much, Thomas.
Thank
Pleasure.
you.
Thanks for inviting me.
You're welcome.
All right.
Tom Herzog Podcast. Der Tom Herzog Podcast. Tom Herzog Podcast.